Hello guys, in today's class we shall discuss first module of your subject power system protection. In the module 1 we have introduction to power system protection. Okay, we know that in electrical power system we have generators, transformers, transmission as well as distribution lines. Yes, we need to safeguard this equipments or these devices from various faults. So sometimes what happens, due to short circuit, heavy current starts to flow in the system. It may be in your generator, or it may be your transformer, or it may be your transmission and distribution lines. So in that case what happens, we need to have some protective relays as well as circuit breakers so that to isolate such short circuit heavy current flowing in the system. Okay, so short circuit are also called as faults by power engineers. They are also termed as faults. Short circuit is a type of a fault. Fault means defect. Sometimes conduction break is also called as open conductor fault. Okay, it is not just always short circuit means, fault means that is flow of heavy current. Fault also termed as, even if the current flow is zero, that also we call it as what? Fault. Okay, that is we are categorizing under open conductor fault. Okay, usually we have two types of fault. One is shunt fault as well as series fault. Shunt fault we will be having LL fault, LLG fault, LG fault, triple LG fault. Okay, these all come under what? Shunt fault. Whereas in series fault we get what? One open conductor fault, two open conductor fault, three open conductor fault. Okay, now if fault occurs, then what happens? Automatically our protective device need to isolate the faulty part within the stipulation of time or within fraction of second. Otherwise what happens? System may get damaged and heavy short circuit current may cause fire, and also sometimes what happens, even generator will also what? Lose its synchronism. Okay, so these are all the things which arise one after the another. So we need to isolate the fault as soon as possible within a certain period of time. So in protective system we have like transducers, which include your current transformers as well as voltage transformers, and also it includes circuit breakers as well as relays. Okay, so transducers are used to isolate the faulty part from high voltage as well as high current. Okay, transducers are basically used to what? Isolate your devices from high voltage as well as high current, whereas relays are used to detect fault and send command to circuit breaker to isolate. Okay, relays are used to what? Detect fault as well as to send the commands to where? Circuit breaker to isolate or to remove the fault or isolate the fault. So during abnormal condition, what happens? Your voltage, current, phase angle, frequency, all the parameters will change. Okay, so not only just your voltage, current, even if also even your generator as well as motor, they may overspeed or they may underspeed. Sometimes even what happens? Over voltage, loss of excitation in generator as well as overheating of stator as well as rotor may also seen during the abnormal condition. So this is like a cancer to the power system and we need to rectify it as soon as possible. Okay. Now let us see nature and causes of fault. Okay. So let us see first causes of fault. See, causes of fault, like already I have told you, that is due to the it may be your failure in the system or due to short circuit. What happens? Fault occurs. And actually why the short circuit occurs, that is the part which you need to learn. Okay, so some of the causes we have listed here, and those are over voltage, yes, and due to lightning on the transmission line. See, sometimes what happens due to our natural calamities, and what happens, we know that lightning falls on the earth. So in between what happens, we have a transmission lines as well as transmission poles. So your transmission lines as well as poles may affect by the lightning. In that case, what happens, fault may occur. So sometimes what happens, even objects falling on the overhead lines that you might have seen in your near houses or somewhere in your near poles. What happens, some like trees or something heavy object, what happens, falls on the transmission line. So transmission line gets cut, and again it may fall on the ground. Yes, that also it's a type of a fault. Even your insulation sometimes get failure, say after spending its time, say after a span of time, or after a span of years, what happens, the insulation will get deteriorates. So in that case, what happens, the insulation will also fail, and due to insulation failure, what happens, there may also result a fault. So sometimes what happens, even say like industries and all, we know that those industries will what, emit some carbon dioxide as well as some dust. Yes, some soot particles it emits. So what happens, these soot particles, what they do, they go on settling on the transmission line. So in that case, what happens, it hurdles the transmission flow or current flow. In that case, what happens, your fault may occur. Okay, that also may deteriorate your insulation properties of the insulator. So sometimes even conduction failures occur, sometimes dirt accumulation, and sometimes what happens, even due to birds also, what happens, birds also will cause the faults. You might have seen while going around the road and all, you might have seen that birds will get attracted in sense what, they get shorted and they will be like hanging on the transmission line. Again, lineman has to come again, it has to clear all those things. Okay, so even open conductor faults, like I told you, series faults are also called as your faults. Okay, and even sometimes what happens, even joint failures also occur. So that what happens, there also it results the fault. So fault actually what it does, it creates unbalance. It creates unbalance in the system. So that unbalance will set up harmonics. So what happens, that will cause the heating of the machines. It may be a generator, it may be motor. Okay, it may be anything. It starts to heat. What are harmonics? Harmonics are the unwanted frequencies other than the fundamental frequency, which will be present due to this faults. So sometimes what happens, due to the smoke as well as sometimes in hilly areas, we know that snow falls, ice falls, everything. So in that case, what happens, the fault will occurs. Even your natural calamities, like I told you, lightning and all, and even earthquakes, and also sometimes you might be knowing, it will be very funny to see that your climbers will climb through the transmission pole, and it will spread all over the transmission lines, distribution lines. You have seen that. Yes, sometimes that also will lead to fault. And even your circuit breakers will trip due to the errors caused by the humans and all. So in that case, what happens, that is also a type of a fault, in where switching operations, what happens, your circuit breakers will trip unnecessarily, okay, due to no any reasons, or you can call that due to some errors and all, your circuit breaker will trip. And also sometimes what happens, fault occur due to the poor quality of system components. Okay, see, sometimes what happens, components of the power system are not up to the mark. You say sometimes low grade, if you install the power system, low grade quality of equipments if you install, that also will lead to the fault. Okay, and also faulty system design means if the system design is not up to the mark, it is not proper, in that case also what happens, fault will occur. Okay, and now coming to the types of faults. So basically we have two types of faults. Already I have told you, shunt fault and series fault. Again, broadly if classified, it is told as symmetrical faults as well as unsymmetrical faults. First, let us see what are symmetrical faults. Symmetrical faults are also called as standard faults. Again, symmetrical faults, if again classified, we get what? Triple LG fault as well as triple L fault. See, here name itself indicates symmetrical means whatever fault is occurring in the system, it is distributed or divided equally in all the three phases or three lines. Okay, so likewise we are going to categorize it as what? Triple LG or triple L fault. Okay, means all three phases will get, as well as ground will get what? Shorted at at that point, whereas in the second point what happens, triple L fault, all 3 lines will get fault. In triple LG, 3 phases as well as ground includes, whereas in triple L fault only 3 lines will include. Okay. And again here you need to remember is whatever the fault is there, it will be same in all the 3 lines. Okay. Now coming to the unsymmetrical faults, and here we have again 4 types here. 4, if I classified unsymmetrical faults means you have 4 types here again. First one is your LG fault, second one is double LG fault or LLG fault, third one is LL fault, fourth one is open circuit fault. Okay, these are all your unsymmetrical faults. As the name itself indicates, unsymmetrical means the parameter will change from line to line as well as ground. So that's why here the distribution of the fault is different for with respect to different lines. At the first we have LG fault. Okay, so that is single phase to ground fault, or also called as LG fault. Okay, here LG fault means fault occurring between any one of the phases or line as well as with respect to ground. So it is called as LG fault. Any one line as well as ground. If includes means what we call it as? We call it as what? Single phase to ground fault. And basically this fault occurs because of failure of insulation between line as well as ground. Okay. So the main reason occurring for this, that is LG fault, is due to what? Failure of insulation between line as well as ground, or breaking and falling to the ground. Sometimes what happens, I told you already, when heavy object falls on the line, the transmission line will get cut and fall to the ground. So due to that what happens, your single phase to ground fault occurs. Okay. So coming to the second one, that is 2 phase to ground fault or 2 LG fault or double LG fault or LLG fault occurs. So as the name itself indicates, a short circuit between any 2 phases as well as line is called as what? Double line to ground fault. And here also it may happen in the same way, that is a heavy object may fall on the 2 phases, and again those 2 phases get short to each other and they may fall on the ground, and due to this what happens, your 2 phase to ground fault occur. Third one is what? Phase to phase fault, that is LL fault. Here we do not have any ground thing, only what happens here, there is a short circuit between any 2 phases or line to line, and that causes what happens, that causes the fault. Like you can say some metal object may come in contact with the 2 phases. Okay, due to the wind blow and everything, what happens, 2 phases may come in contact with each other. There what happens, a phase to phase fault may occur. Okay. Next one is open circuit fault or open circuit phases fault. See, even if it is open circuit, then also it is called as fault. It is not like always it should be LG or LLG or triple LG fault. So open circuit may be with respect to 1 phase or 2 phase or even 3 phase. Okay, and this is occurred due to what? A break in the cable joints. If there is a mechanical failure in the cable and all, what happens, then what happens, there create a open circuit. Or even on the overhead lines, what happens, even due to the joint break and all, what happens, there creates an open circuit, and due to this what happens, there creates a unbalanced current in the system. So due to unbalanced current, I already told you that results harmonics, and harmonics cause what? Burning of the equipments, because that set up a short circuit current inside this. So what happens, there creates a burning in the, it may be your generator or motor, any transformer, what happens, there we see burning. Okay, so that also has to be isolated as soon as possible. Okay. Next type of fault is called as what? Winding fault, and these type of faults occur in alternator, motor as well as transformer winding. It's nothing but what, there is sometimes what happens, we know that we have windings, transformers or alternators or motors, we know that it is made up of windings inside. So what happens there, sometimes a short circuit may occur between the turns. Okay, due to the short circuiting in the turns in the transformer, alternator as well as generator. So what happens there, due to this winding faults may also occur. Okay, this is exclusively with respect to alternator, motor as well as transformer. Next one is simultaneous faults. Simultaneous faults are those 2 or more faults occurring at simultaneously on a system, so known as multiple or simultaneous faults. they may occur at same or different part of the system, like LL fault, LLG fault occur at the same time.